Ever felt that gut punch when you stare at your bobber for hours and the only thing running through your head is, man, maybe fishing just ain't for me? You see the guy right next to you pulling in fish after fish while your live well stays completely empty. It feels like you need some secret spot, a boat full of expensive gear, and 50 years of experience just to catch a single keeper. But what if I told you that is totally wrong? What if I told you there are certain fish out there so aggressive and so hungry, they will forgive almost every mistake a beginner makes? In this video, we're diving deep into those exact species. I'm going to give you 7 types of fish that are your guaranteed ticket to fun, successful fishing. After watching this, you'll realize that walking away from the water skunked is almost impossible if you know what to target. So buckle up, because we are starting Operation Fill the Cooler. Before we jump into the list, let's agree on one simple truth. The biggest mistake a beginner makes isn't using the wrong lure or the wrong reel. The biggest mistake is aiming too high right out of the gate. A lot of people watch those awesome trophy fishing videos and immediately try to hook a huge carp or a tricky walleye. That's like trying to ace a college final before you even learned the alphabet. The path to becoming a master always starts small. You need to start with the species that don't demand perfect technique, a super sensitive rod or bait made from a unicorn horn. These fish are your best teachers. They will show you exactly what a strike feels like, teach you how to set the hook, how to fight a fish, and give you that priceless, unbeatable feeling of landing your first catch. And the best part, you don't need to drop a fortune on equipment. All you need is a basic rod and reel combo you can grab at any tackle shop. So, the philosophy is simple. Start easy, have fun, and build your confidence before moving on to those more challenging trophies. Alright, so where do we even begin to make sure your fishing trip is a quick win, not a frustrating bust? Let's skip the fish for a minute and focus entirely on the spot. Forget those huge, deep lakes or those monster rivers with raging currents. Your best bet is small, quiet water. We're talking about local ponds, maybe old quarry pits, little woodsy lakes, or river backwaters where the current just barely moves. Why these specific spots? It's simple. The fish density, the concentration per square foot of water, is way higher. You won't spend hours chasing them down, they'll basically find your bait for you. Now look for what we call structure or cover, anything that looks a little weird. That might be a patch of cattails, a tree that's fallen into the water, or the edge where clear water meets that thick pond scum. Fish absolutely love that kind of cover. They feel safe there, and that's also where they hunt for food. Remember, for a fish, any piece of cover is home and the dinner table, all rolled into one. So when you cast your line right next to one of these spots, you seriously boost your chances of getting a fast bite. Don't be lazy, walk the bank and actively hunt for that perfect, promising piece of water. Now a quick word about your magic wand. Forget those big, complicated feeder setups, the high-tech spinning rods loaded with dozens of weird, specialized lures, and all the complicated gear the pros use. For your first steps, your main weapon is the simplest gear possible, a standard float or bobber rod, something about 4 to 5 meters long. It's light, it's basic, and it is incredibly effective, even if your hands aren't exactly skilled yet. The great thing about a float rig is that it's completely visual. You see everything unfold. The float might drift sideways, then maybe it twitches up, and then suddenly it dives straight under. That dive right there, that is the strike. This direct visual connection to what's happening underwater is hugely satisfying, and it teaches you quickly exactly when you need to set the hook. There is no need to buy the most expensive rod. Start with the most budget-friendly option you can find. The crucial part is that your tackle must be correctly balanced. A light, sensitive float, thin line, and a small hook. The more delicate and inconspicuous your rig is, the bolder the fish will be. Alright, now that we've covered the gear, let's finally meet who we're actually going to catch. Kicking off our countdown is a fish absolutely everyone knows, the perch. This striped bandit is perpetually hungry, super curious, and a true predator. Why is the perch perfect for beginners? Simple. They are everywhere: rivers, lakes, ponds, reservoirs, you name it. They aren't picky about conditions, and they are almost never full. Their relentless appetite is your biggest advantage. A perch isn't going to circle your bait, debating whether or not it's worth the effort. If it's hungry, and trust me, it's hungry almost all the time, it will hit hard and fast. You'll know immediately when you get a strike. It's either a sharp tug on the line or that telltale, confident yank that pulls your bobber straight underwater. It's almost impossible to confuse a perch bite with anything else. Another great thing? Perch are schooling fish. If you catch one, chances are good that dozens of its buddies are hanging out nearby. So once you land that first striped guy, don't rush off to a new spot. Keep working that exact area, and you might just stack up a serious stringer of fish. So what are we using to hook this striped beauty? The answer here is almost embarrassingly simple. The best bait, the absolute goat, for perch and panfish is your standard nightcrawler or a simple red wiggler. It's natural forage. They simply cannot resist it. Forget about complex rigs, fancy bait sandwiches, or those expensive imported treats. Just hook up a lively worm, make sure that tail end is still wriggling enticingly, and cast out. That frantic action is like ringing the dinner bell. It triggers an instant, aggressive strike. No worms handy, no sweat. Check your local tackle shop for maggots, often called spikes here in the States. These fly larvae are killer on perch and bluegill too. For a fuller presentation, thread 2 or 3 onto the hook. Another solid backup is the bloodworm, which is actually a mosquito larva. They are tricky though, super delicate, and a pain to hook. But sometimes, especially when the water gets cold, bloodworms are absolutely the ticket, the number one option. So remember this simple, winning formula: fish in the area, grab a worm. This basic rule works 99% of the time, guaranteed. So, how do you successfully catch perch using a bobber setup? You generally have 2 main approaches. The first is the passive method. You cast your rig into a likely spot, maybe right up against a line of reeds or heavy cover, and you just wait for a bite. This way works, sure, but it's not always the most effective. Perch are aggressive predators, and a lot of the time you need to trigger that strike. That's why the second technique, the active search, often yields better results. This involves giving your bait a periodic, slow retrieve. What you do is, after you cast, wait maybe a minute. If nothing hits, start easing your rig back toward you, very slowly, using pauses. I'm talking just 4 or 6 inches at a time. That subtle movement really grabs the perch's attention. They see it as fleeing prey and instinctually smash it. Also, don't be afraid to play around with the depth. Start fishing right off the bottom, but if you aren't getting hits, gradually shallow up your rig by sliding your bobber stopper higher. Sometimes perch are suspended mid-column, even feeding right near the surface. Next up in our lineup, the roach. If the perch is the neighborhood bully, the roach is the silvery classic of our local waters. It's an elegant, beautiful, and incredibly widespread fish. Like the perch, you can find roach almost everywhere. But unlike its aggressive cousin, this is a truly peaceful fish. It's not a predator. It feeds mainly on vegetation and small invertebrates. So why is the roach perfect for beginners? It's an incredibly curious fish and frequently hangs out close to the bank. You don't have to chase it out into deep water. It takes a standard cane pole or a simple float rig perfectly. Now, the roach can be finicky, but it's also predictable. It teaches you to be mindful and precise. Its bite is nothing like that sharp, sudden jerk you get from a perch. More often, it's a subtle quiver of the bobber or a slow lift followed by a gentle pull to the side. The roach is how you truly master the timely hook set. It forces you to feel your line and understand the most delicate tap the fish makes on your bait. And a school of active roach can give you an unforgettable session, delivering dozens of bites in a single outing. So, what's the best way to tempt this little silver fighter? When targeting roach, you've got a much wider variety of bait options than you would for standard perch. This fish has a serious sweet tooth and can be surprisingly picky, but the classic go-to bait, hands down, is the maggot or spike. Thread 2 or 3 of those little white larvae onto a small hook, and this fish rarely turns it down. Next up, bread dough or a simple bread ball. Just take a piece of plain white bread, wet it down slightly and knead it until it's the consistency of putty or Play-Doh. For extra scent, you can mix in a tiny drop of oil or maybe some anise extract. Roll that dough into a small ball about the size of a pea and make sure you completely hide the hook inside the bait. Another excellent offering is a semolina paste, or what some call slurry bait. It's easy to make. Just pour a little water into a cup and slowly add semolina, constantly stirring until you get a thick, sticky, and highly elastic mass. You usually use a small stick or toothpick to wind this paste directly onto the hook. Roach absolutely hammer this stuff. And finally, you can never forget about bloodworms. When the water gets cold, especially during the colder months, bloodworms are often the only thing that temperamental roach will even look at. The secret to catching big numbers of roach is running extremely light and sensitive tackle. You need to forget everything you know about heavy line and oversized bobbers. Your rig has to be utterly finesse. We're talking a main line of just 0.14 millimeters, and your leader should drop down to 0.12 or even 0.10 millimeters. Choose a very light, long pencil-style float, rated for no more than 1.5 to 2 grams of weight. Crucially, it must be properly balanced and weighted. You only want the very tip of the antenna poking out of the surface. This delicate setup will reveal even the most cautious bite. Your hook should also be tiny and thin wire, so you don't spook the fish. Before you start fishing, it's essential to chum the spot. You don't need expensive store-bought mixes. Just grab regular breadcrumbs, mix them with a little dirt or clay from the bank, add a touch of water to bind it, and roll a few chum balls about the size of an orange. Toss these balls right into your target zone. This will create an appealing scent cloud that draws the roach in and keeps them actively feeding right where you need them. Let's move on to our next feature fish. This guy is a true legend, the undisputed survival champion, and a long-time favorite among anglers everywhere. Say hello to the Crucian carp. Whether it's the golden variety or the silver, you can find this fish in almost any body of water, even the most overgrown, choked out or muddy little pond. The carp is resilient, I mean seriously resilient. This fish can handle the harshest conditions imaginable. It'll burrow deep into the mud to overwinter and survive in water barely containing any oxygen at all. It's exactly this incredible hardiness and willingness to bite that makes it the perfect target for the beginner angler. Carp are true omnivores. They'll happily munch on just about anything you throw at them. But the way they take the bait, that's a whole performance. Your bobber might tremble for a long time, then slowly drift sideways, maybe even lay flat on the surface, and only then will it finally take the plunge. Watching that display is truly mesmerizing, and man, does it teach you patience. Hooking a carp isn't just about pulling in a fish. You're trying to outsmart a clever, cautious opponent, and when you manage to land one, the feeling of victory is huge. Plus, carp are surprisingly strong fighters, and even a small one will give you a thrilling workout on the retrieve. So, what exactly do you use to catch this wily fish? The Crucian carp is a notorious gourmet, and his preferences can change constantly throughout the day. But there are a few baits that work almost every time. Number 1 on the list, just like for perch, is the good old night crawler, or red worm. Big carp especially love them. The worm is the ultimate universal bait. It catches just about everything. Number 2, standard maggots or grubs, a reliable default option that will often save the day. But the real secrets to catching carp often lie in vegetative or plant-based baits. Bread, dough balls, boiled grains, and canned corn. These are their favorite snacks. Also, the carp absolutely loves strong, pungent smells. So don't be afraid to experiment with attractants and scent boosters. The simplest and most effective is garlic. You can just rub your bait with a fresh clove of garlic or mix crushed garlic, right into your dough. Anise oil, vanilla extract, or even unrefined seed oils also work great. Sometimes adding the right scent can turn a completely dead day into a full-blown fishing frenzy. The key is, don't overdo it. The smell should be subtle and enticing, not overpowering and off-putting. So, where and when do you look for carp? Their ideal home is any quiet, overgrown body of water. Think stagnant ponds or places with a super slow current. We're talking about small lakes, river backwaters, slow creeks, or even old peat quarries. They absolutely love soft, muddy bottoms where they can root around looking for a snack. Focus on areas near dense reeds, lily pads, or the little clear pockets you see amongst the moss and muck. Carp are warm water fish. They are most active during the warmer months, usually starting in late spring and going right through mid-fall. The absolute best time to target them is early morning, right at sunrise, and again in the evening just before the sun drops. During the day, especially when it's hot, they tend to get sluggish and hide out deep in the shade of the shore structure. Fishing for carp demands silence and a ton of patience. Do not make noise on the bank, no loud talking, no stomping around. Crucian carp are extremely wary and easily spooked. Cast your line out and wait. Resist the urge to constantly reel in and recast. Give the fish time to locate your bait and commit to the bite. Sometimes you have to wait 10 or even 20 minutes, but trust me, that nice, confident take and the fight that follows are absolutely worth the wait. Now let's talk about a fish that even a kid picking up a rod for the first time can catch. I'm talking about the gudgeon. No, this fish is not going to win any size contests. We're usually looking at a fish only about 4 to 6 inches long. But our goal here is simple: to have fun, enjoy the process, and make sure we don't get skunked. And for that, the gudgeon is the champion. They thrive in clean rivers and clear streams, usually over sand or gravel bottoms. That's actually how they got their name. Gudgeon are classic bottom feeders and they stick together in schools. If you find one, trust me, you found a whole crowd of his buddies. This fish is incredibly aggressive and absolutely not picky about what it eats. They hit the bait hard and fast, and they'll take practically any type of natural or live bait you drop in front of them. For a beginner or a kid who just wants to feel that exciting first bite and land their first fish ever, the gudgeon is the perfect choice. This is 100% guaranteed catch, period. When a gudgeon strikes, it's a series of sharp, unmistakable tugs. Your bobber won't just dip, it'll literally dance on the water. It is impossible to miss this strike. And reeling in these feisty little fish one after another, that's just pure, fast-paced fun. How do you catch gudgeon? It's super simple. All you need is the lightest ultralight rod setup. Since gudgeon are bottom feeders, you need to set your depth so that your bait is resting right on the bottom, or maybe just an inch or two above the riverbed. The best bait is a tiny piece of nightcrawler, or maybe 1 or 2 maggots. That's really all it takes. You should look for gudgeon in shallow sections of the river that have a noticeable but mild current and a clean, sandy bottom. They often hang out right on the riffles or in the quiet water immediately downstream of them. Just cast your line out, and if they're there, you'll get a bite almost instantly. Seriously, it doesn't get any easier than this. This is the perfect way to introduce a kid to fishing. Landing 10 small fish will bring them way more joy than spending hours waiting for one big strike. It's fast-paced, fun, and always productive, the kind of fishing that builds a lifelong love for the sport. Even for an adult beginner, this is a great chance to hone your hook setting skills and just genuinely enjoy the process. Our next candidate is the polar opposite of those sleek, elegant panfish. This one is spiny, slimy, plain ugly, and yet unbelievably aggressive. This is the ruffet. A lot of experienced anglers don't give this guy the time of day, but for a beginner, the ruffet can be an absolute lifesaver on a tough day when nothing else is biting. Like perch, the ruffet is a true predator, and he's constantly hungry. You can find him in rivers and lakes, usually favoring those deeper spots with sandy or rocky bottoms. His main appeal to us, it's his sheer fearlessness and voracious appetite. When a rougher decides to bite, he hits hard and he slams the bait right down his throat. A roofer bite is unmistakable. Sharp, aggressive tugs on your float that often end with the bobber getting completely pulled under. If roofer are in your area, they will definitely let you know. They don't waste time being finicky or picky. They simply see food and they inhale it. This makes them incredibly easy to catch, even if you're doing everything wrong, using heavy line, an oversized hook, and clumsy tackle. A hungry roofer will still hit. He forgives every mistake you make. Catching a rougher is just as straightforward as snagging a minnow. They are bottom dwellers, so your bait needs to be resting right on the lake bed. The best baits are simple, a classic worm or a bloodworm. They'll take maggots too, but they aren't quite as enthusiastic about them. While roughs are easy to hook, removing them requires caution. All of their fins, especially that dorsal fin, are lined with seriously sharp spines. Getting poked by one of those is pretty painful, so when you unhook a roofer, either grip it firmly, pinning the spines down against its body, or use a specialized tool like a disgorger to take the hook out without touching the fish at all. That's actually a great crash course in proper fish handling technique. Despite their plain looks and spikiness, catching a roofer is actually a great indicator that you're doing everything right. It tells you you've found the spot where the fish are holding, and that you've chosen a working bait. Plus, roughy makes an incredibly rich and flavorful stock for soup, so don't look down on this fish. It's an honest and achievable catch for any beginner angler. All right, folks, get ready to meet the most unique and downright aggressive fish on this countdown. They call him the rotan, the Amur Sleeper, or sometimes just the bull goby. This fish is a true outsider, an invasive species that made its way here all the way from the Far East. But man, is this thing tough. Its incredible ability to survive and its absolutely massive hunger allowed it to spread all across the country. You'll find it mostly chilling in stagnant, mucky, heavily overgrown waters, backwater ponds, bogs, maybe an old flooded quarry. When the water quality is terrible and nothing else can live there, the rotan is absolutely thriving. This is a straight-up predator. It's got this huge bucket mouth and an appetite that never quits. Seriously, this guy eats everything that moves and fits down its gullet. Minnows, worms, leeches, tadpoles, and, yeah, even the smaller rotans. That level of aggression and sheer greed makes it an absolute blast to target. The rotan attacks the bait without a second thought. It doesn't discriminate. The strike is vicious, powerful, and you will know when you get hit. This fish will literally try to rip the rod right out of your hands. Look, if you've got rotans in your spot, you are going to land fish, guaranteed. This is the ultimate non-stop action fish that bites hard all the time for every single angler. Catching the Amur Sleeper, or rotan, doesn't require any finesse gear. You can spool up with some heavier line and tie on a pretty big hook. This fish is absolutely fearless. The top bait, hands down, is a big night crawler. Seriously, you can thread a whole gob of them onto the hook. They also hit hard on chunks of raw meat, chicken liver, or even straight-up bacon fat. Some guys even catch them successfully jigging small, soft plastic lures. Rotan don't mess around. Drop your bait near any weeds or heavy cover and you'll get a strike almost immediately. This is some truly fast, action-packed fishing. It's actually a perfect training ground for mastering your hook set and learning how to properly fight a fish. Okay, yeah, it's an invasive species that crowds out the native populations, but for any beginner angler or someone just desperate for a guaranteed bite, this fish is a goldmine. You'll rack up tons of excitement, build confidence, and definitely won't go home skunked. And by the way, they're actually pretty good when you fry them up. They have almost no bones to deal with. And that brings us to the 7th and final spot on our countdown. This species represents a real step forward, a clear transition to the next level of angling. We're talking about bream. More accurately, we'll start with the smaller version, often called the skimmer bream. This is the same species, but typically weighing under 1.5 pounds. Why does it make the cut? Despite their legendary caution, these smaller bream are widespread, and with the right setup and approach, they are still accessible to the novice angler. But they will teach you much more refined skills, true ground baiting techniques, the meaning of patience, and critical finesse. Landing a quality bream is a serious accomplishment, one you should absolutely be proud of. This broad-shouldered bronze fish is both stunning and powerful. Battling one on light tackle, that is a fight you won't soon forget. The bream is a schooling species. If you manage to dial in the bite and attract a whole school of skimmers, you are in for some incredible action. You'll get hit after hit, non-stop. At this point, you're moving past simply fishing. You're executing real-time angling tactics and strategy. So, how exactly do you target this fish? Bream, just like carp, are true bottom feeders. They love to nose around in the mud and silt. That means you need to fish them right off the lake bed. While a standard float rig works, this is where you can start experimenting with a simple bottom rig, sometimes just called a bank setup, or even master the fundamentals of feeder fishing. The feeder is essentially a specialized bottom rod that uses a cage or basket. You pack the feeder with your chum mix, put your hook bait on and cast it out. As the mix washes out, it creates an irresistible concentrated spot right on the bottom, which draws the fish straight in. For bream hook baits, excellent choices include a cluster of maggots or grubs, worms, bloodworms, or a combination, what anglers often call a cocktail or sandwich. For example, a few maggots paired with a single bloodworm. The absolute key to catching bream is the attractant mix or ground bait. It needs to be heavy, filling, and packed with enough aroma to draw in the school and keep them actively feeding in your spot. You can purchase a specialized bream chum mix ready-made, or you can blend your own by combining ingredients like plain breadcrumbs, cooked grains such as millet or crushed corn, and various liquid flavorings or enhancers. When you're fishing for bottom feeders, patience is absolutely everything. We're not talking about a fish that hits the minute your line lands in the water. Sometimes you're waiting an hour, maybe even longer, for that first tap. But that's the magic of it, right? You pre-bait your spot, cast out your rig, and then you just vanish. You need to be totally silent and invisible. Then, just when you're about to write the day off, it happens, that classic, unmistakable take. If you're using a bobber, you'll see it slowly lift out of the water, then gently tip over and lay flat. That's the signal. The fish has picked up the bait and lifted the weight off the bottom. If you're fishing a bottom rig or a feeder setup, the rod tip will nod down slowly and then, bam, it springs back straight. That's your cue. Set the hook. And now you feel that solid, heavy pull on the other end of the line. Man, there is nothing else like that feeling. Once you land that first good one, you realize you're ready for bigger fishing challenges. It's your well-deserved payout for all that patience and dedication. All right, here they are, your 7 reliable starting points for mastering the sport of fishing. We're talking bluegill, crappie, catfish, perch, sunfish, rock bass, and small bass. Every single one of these species is a blast to catch, and they can all hook you up with some truly awesome memories. Now, the most crucial takeaway from this whole video is this. A beginner's success isn't about having the coolest, most expensive gear. It's about setting the right goals. Don't immediately chase those monster trophies. Start small. Learn to truly enjoy the process, the bite, the fight, the whole experience. Build that confidence. Fishing isn't a competition, man. It's therapy for the soul. And these 7 fish are going to help you fall in love with the sport and make your first few trips easy and successful. Remember, every fish you land, even the tiniest one, is a small win for you. Thanks so much for watching the video all the way through. If you found this useful, definitely smash that like button and subscribe to the channel. Now here's a question for you. Which one of these species was the very first fish you ever landed? Or maybe you have your own secret weapon fish for beginners that I totally missed. Drop a comment below and let's talk about it.